this would be a good location for one. And of course, the goal is to improve access, particularly for low-income folks. And so once Crusoe service is connected, you'd basically be able to get broadband service for as low as $15 a month, if based on whether you qualify from an income perspective. Then finally, we are making some general updates to the wireless ordinance here in the county to make it easier to permit new wireless facilities. The old ordinance is from 2003, and to planning staff's own quote is in desperate need of an update. So some of the changes being made would be basically going from a discretionary process to a ministerial process, which means there's not as many opportunities to challenge it. If someone does want to challenge a new wireless application, it would really have to be based on written record, and it would have to be in an area of scenic, historic, or other sensitive area, coastal zone, et cetera. There'll be a more uniform approach to timelines, a shot clock period of 60 days in which these applications would be considered. And if that shot clock runs out, then they'll be deemed approved. And then finally, the CPUC did make the California Public Utilities Commission did determine that these facilities would have to have 72 hours of backup power. That's particularly in case of emergencies or public safety power shutoffs from PG&E that folks do not, when you need it most, lose their cell service. And our wireless ordinance will reiterate that. All right, we continue to follow the code compliance case on Laurel Road. Sorry, was there a question on the what?
Where is this wireless going to be? Is it on
Yes, it's on San Jose Soquel Road at the Seventh-day Adventist property.
Nowhere near here.
Well, not you couldn't walk there from here, or I wouldn't recommend it, but it is going to be up. Well, that it will actually. I believe it will because it's up on a ridge above the property. So it has really great line of sight all the way up this valley. It might not help every single individual, but it was chosen for its excellent location to really help a lot of people.
Yeah, but it's not going to help in some area because it's a very high frequency signal. High frequencies do not help the ground. They're very direct to shots. We're 2,000 feet, a lot of us.
Mm-hmm.
That's down at 400 feet max, and we've been trying to build. So it's going to have very little effect on us.
Okay.
We have all these ridges and all these little mountains that block signals for us.
Got it. All right. Yeah. So there was general concern that the tower won't do all that much for the Summit area. Then, sure. Yeah, we were happy to also talk to the project lead about what their long-term plans are and if they're looking at any other equipment that would help this area.
Yeah, we've studied this for a number of years. There's no question, gentleman's correct. We need another cell tower somewhere in the vicinity of the store. And that'll do the upper ridges and down the canyon. But I love to see what I see here, the 60-day thing. Well, the other question is, the PUC last item there.
Yep.
That also applies to Comcast remote points or access points as well. Is that true?
I believe so. Yeah. If you could hold that. Just
it applies to Comcast access points, and there's about 7 up here. So when the power goes down, we don't also lose our powered internet.
I believe so. We're happy to double check on that.
Would you do that, please? Yeah, it's pretty important. It gets very dark up here when the power goes out.
Okay, great. And I'll just use this opportunity to say, if you have anything that you would like us to follow up with you on, please just make sure to either, if you're online, you can direct message Jamie Seahorn here in the chat with your contact information and the question that you had, or if you're here in the live audience, you can talk to either Shane in the green sweater or Christina here in the black dress. And just make sure you leave us your contact information so that we do know how to reach you and follow up with any information you request. All right, no more questions on this item, then I'll move along. Okay, yeah, we do continue to, so this code compliance case with Mr. Rognus on Laurel Road, the property was cited for several code violations back in November. The 90-day period is, I believe it's close to or has actually elapsed at this point. So we are ready to move forward with an administrative hearing on this case. Staff has not been able to contact Mr. Rognus in order to serve him papers. So if anyone knows of his whereabouts, we'd love to. All right, I'm hearing that he was on the property this morning. We will find a way to connect with them so that we can move this forward. Yeah, of course, the reason this whole case was initiated was because of a fire. So I'm sorry to hear that another fire was started. And we do hope to address it. You can reach out directly to our office. We'll make sure that code compliance gets the information if you have any information on when he's on the property. All right, that gets through all the geographic based items I wanted to share an update on. We did approve new rules for generators. Again, this is as a way for people to deal with the occasional power shutoffs, either whether they're from PG&E or because of any other kind of emergency. So back in December 7th, the board approved new rules that basically reduce the setbacks required for generators from about 45 to 75 feet down to around 25 to 45 feet. And in addition, though, we did add a provision that generators could only be operated between the hours of 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. So just trying to balance everyone in the community's interests here, that more people could have a generator legally and have more parts of their property where one could be placed legally, but not keep everyone up at night. And the laws will go into effect this month.
So it has to be off from what time to what time?
From 10 to 7, yes. And then finally, just an update on Firewise. This is basically a way for neighborhoods to come together and prepare, assess risk in their own neighborhoods for fire danger and create a plan to address them. We've seen really great uptake within the county of lots of new Firewise groups being created. I was happy to allocate $50,000 to the Firewise program in last year's budget, and the Fire Safe Council has really run with this. They got another $175,000 grant from the State Fire Safe Council leveraging those monies. And in total, we are now up to 24 Firewise groups countywide. So it's a huge improvement, 14 just in the last year. Here's a list of all the Firewise groups. Hopefully you either see one nearby where you live, and if not, it's a great opportunity to create a new Firewise group with your neighbors. The 6 steps to creating a Firewise group are there. You start by just forming a steering committee with a few active neighbors. Collect data, create a community risk assessment, prepare a multi-year plan to reduce that risk, complete one community education event, which you engage more of your neighbors outside of the steering committee, meet some kind of minimum investment for everyone in the neighborhood of either 1 hour or $25 towards reducing fire danger, and then creating an account on the Firewise USA portal. That's all I have for specific information to share. I'm happy to take any questions. Just since we do have about 35 people online, as well as the folks here in the audience, we'll start with people in the audience. Just ask that you use the microphone when asking your questions so that everyone can hear you. Probably also would be easiest if you could come up to the podium here. That way folks can see you online as well, if you don't mind.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Chuck Tennisketter. and I represent a 26 home road association between here and Spanish Ranch. My question is really simple. With all the things that you're doing in the county, or you just mentioned on repairing the roads, we're curious as to when Highland Road from San Jose, Soquel Road, or Soquel San Jose Road up to Spanish Ranch Road will be taken care of. It's bad. And there's a dip in there now that is beginning to become very dangerous for people. So I should put that on the record.
Okay, thank you. The question is when we'll be able to address the damage or improve the road on Highland Way. I'm happy to check if I don't believe our current Highland Way is currently on the maintenance schedule. I'll have to check and get back to you. I'm happy to talk at greater length about roads if the audience would like that. Let's see. Basically our county is in a big problem when it comes to roads. I mean, you all know that because you see it every single day. And the fundamental reason behind that is because we're a poor county as far as how our property taxes were set in Prop 13. The county only gets 13%. That's 13 cents on the dollar for every property tax dollar that you pay. That was set in the voter passed initiative of Prop 13. That's not the same for every county. We are a poor county. We're in the bottom 10th of all the counties in California. So as you can see, San Francisco gets 70% of their property tax revenue. San Luis Obispo, 25%, Santa Barbara, 20%. I mean, the difference between that and what we get, 13%, is about $25 million a year. So as a result, we have one of the poorest road quality indexes in the state. As you can see here, compared to some of the other counties I mentioned. Our road quality index is a 48. That's below 50. It's what it sounds. Out of 100, it's failing. And again, I know you see it every day. We have, if you add up all the sources, about $8 million a year that goes towards roads. What we need is at least $24 million a year to stay even. So where should the money come from? I mean, it's easy to look at the county budget and go, oh, there's like $603 million in funds just in like, the general fund, right? We should be able to make this work. Some of the challenges there is because we're a poor county, every department, every division is short-staffed. I mean, you know how hard it is to get the sheriff up here. Part of the reason is because he's got many unfunded positions right now. We have multiple jail facilities, which because of a lack of staffing are not even open. And these are the most humane, medium security and minimum security facilities we have that we can't even operate because for lack of staffing. Health and Human Services seems like the natural place to take funding from because it's such a big bar there. The challenge is that we actually can make money on Health and Human Services most of the time because we get reimbursed every time someone sees a patient. And so every dollar we spend there usually results in more than $1 worth of funding that comes in to help pay for those services. So it's hard to take money from that. Land use is both planning department, which I know you all love, and parks, which have a huge maintenance problem. So we could potentially take some money from general government. That's basically just the what makes the county run, and we could be more efficient there. But essentially, here's what we're looking at as far as trying to fix this problem. I mean, I can tell you, sir, that I'll go look at when Highland Way is going to come up. It's not going to be as soon as you'd like. It's not as soon as I'd like either. So these are some of the things we're going to have to consider. If we could increase county property tax share to 20%, boom, our problem would be solved. But because that would essentially mean taking money, sorry, here. Going back to this pie graph, as you can see, most of our property taxes go to schools. And so if we increase the county share, the school share would decrease. Now in other counties, the state will backfill that funding and help make up the difference. But it would basically be a huge fight. So that is probably although it's the simplest route to address the problem, probably the most difficult and likely be met with the most resistance. So another relatively simple way to go about it would just be a new parcel tax that everyone paid. And, you know, it would probably have to be several $100s a year, and then that would create enough money to fund roads. These are some of the other options we have. A 0.5-cent sales tax, that would generate about $9 million a year. We could spend at least half of that on roads, so that's, you know, $4.5–5 million. So, you know, some of the other ways that the county generates revenue, we get all of it. So transit occupancy tax, when someone stays in a hotel, 100% of those taxes go to the county. So with, you know, just one new large hotel, we could potentially generate, you know, $1 to $2 million a year of additional TOT taxes. It's likely that you will see on your June ballot. We're going to vote on this actually at the next Board of Supervisors meeting to put the question to the public of whether or not to increase transit occupancy taxes 1% for hotels up to, I think 12% and 14% for short-term rentals like Airbnbs and vacation, VRBO, et cetera. So that's another source of funds potentially. Cannabis cultivation and sales also goes directly to the county. Right now, we make about $5 million a year from cannabis cultivation taxes. We could potentially double that. Again, that has negative impacts on some of the immediate neighbors. So controversial topic. Event permits, we could look at, we don't actually have an event permitting system today. So someone can't legally have multiple weddings or other events on a piece of private property. But if we did, that could be a source of revenue, both directly from the permit, as well as just bringing people into the county, spending money on these events that would probably lead to an increase in sales taxes. You know, we can continue to be good at lobbying for our fair share of gas taxes for county roads. That if we do that consistently enough, that could be another source of money, say $2 million a year, and then looking to cuts to existing government. So all this is you tell me which of these sounds the best to you. But that's essentially the problem that we're going to have to solve in order to make sure not only your road gets fixed, but everyone's in a timely fashion, and that we continue to maintain our county road network. So sorry if you don't.
The $9 million shortfall. If you increase the sales tax.
So. Right. So no, we have a $16 million shortfall every year. So and a sales tax could provide some amount of that, right? If all 100% of a sales tax went to roads, that'd be about $9 million a year. Other questions on roads? Yeah, sir. Yeah.
Have you considered trying to make changes to the distribution of funds, of the tax funds? You're saying that San Francisco gets 70%, we get 13%. That was done back in 1980 or when the Proposition 13 still passed. Things have changed. Has there been any effort to try to get it to something that's a little bit more equitable across the counties? Because we can't be the only county that thinks they're getting screwed out of their tax money.
So yeah, the question is, can we just change the 13%? Yeah, absolutely. I've talked to our sort of the county, you know, the lobbying group specifically for counties on, you know, whether or not that would be possible, because it certainly makes the most sense, right? We're not getting a fair deal today. And if we just got the same as Marin County or Napa County, 20%, problem solved, right? Not only for roads, but also for all other departments, parks, the sheriff's office, et cetera. So yeah, I mean, I'm certainly happy to continue that effort. The challenge is that, first of all, we'd have to, so it was passed by voter initiative, right? With Prop 13, which means to change that, you either need a vote of 2/3 of the legislature or another public initiative, which could be put on the ballot either with the signature drive or with, I believe it's 2/3 of the legislature could vote to put it out again to vote. And the politics of it are tricky because it takes money away from schools. In theory, the state could then backfill that money, but that is why it becomes a difficult fight. So it's certainly something I will continue to pursue because it's the most sort of obvious thing that's unfair about this situation. And I will certainly create a way for you as citizens, if that looks like there's any possibility there to help advocate with our state legislators for that course of action.
Who do we go to? Who should we be going to decide who can end it? If we beat on the vote for years, and we hear the same thing.
Yep. And I'm trying to give you, I know. Well, certainly our state legislators, Mark Stone and Senator Laird should hear about this as well. And my office will certainly talk to them about it. And we'll happy to create some template emails with basic information that you can share and use to reach out to them as well. Go ahead.
And I've been hearing how the state is so flush with money that they are trying to find ways to shovel it out the door and give it to people. And why can't we get some of that money for something that's so obviously a huge need that's been neglected for so many years? And again, the unfair apportionment of our taxes. And then also, since the federal infrastructure bill was passed, I mean, it seems like most of that money always seems to go to building freeways or, big monumental projects. But the places that most of us, where we live and these long neglected roads, we just never, I mean, we're always here at these meetings every single time, beating on you, which, obviously isn't a preferred way of, anyway, just another thought of getting our state and local state and federal representatives involved in getting us some of that money. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Certainly to the point that the state is flush with cash right now. I mean, it certainly makes more sense if counties just hold on to more of that money and can create our own fire programs and manage our own roads rather than this constant system of having to apply for grant money from the state, right? It would reduce a lot of paperwork if we could just hold on to it and manage it here locally. So I agree with you fundamentally. I mean, of course, I'm sure what we'll hear back from the state is something to the effect of, oh, well, much of this comes from capital gains taxes, which is one-time money. We're not sure that this surplus will continue into the future, et cetera, et cetera. So, I think there's arguments on both sides. I think our argument is stronger, and we have to make it together. But yeah, I think there is a pathway there. It's just not easy.
Very quickly, if I could just ask that residents share their name, just so we can make sure to take that down and then reach back out to you accordingly if there's any follow-ups. Yeah, but specifically just wanted to, request that. Thank you very much. Here you go, ma'am.
Katrina from Santa Cruz. Roads, good enough. I don't think that's the top infrastructure on people's minds, though.
What infrastructure is on the top of your mind?
Schools, maybe?
Okay. Well, hence the problem, right? Is more funding for roads or more funding for schools?
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a question or a particular?
Yeah, I guess maybe indirectly my question is why so much focus on that when I don't feel like that makes the top 5 or maybe even the top 10 of local infrastructure debates.
I think it depends. Do you mind telling us what general neighborhood you live in?
I'd rather not.
Okay, well,
I'm local.
all right. No, I'm
my
not
whole life.
questioning whether you live in the county, but for a lot of folks in the rural areas, are they more likely to see, I think those pavement quality indexes in the below 50 where roads are actually failing.
Mm.
It's not as apparent sometimes in town. So I think that's the fundamental issue. I mean, I can tell you, our office hears about roads all day long. It is probably the number one issue we hear about.
You think that's the number one local infrastructure debate?
It's the
Yeah.
it's the thing I hear about the most.
Thing you hear about the most?
Roads are necessary for people to get to work, to get to hospitals, to get to the stores. The roads are so bad, they're damaging cars, they're damaging power grid. I got 2 wheels that are sitting in the garage because they got bent from the latest pothole at Skyline Road. When people can't get to work, they can't generate revenue to pay taxes, to fund anything else in the county or the state or wherever. This is as much as that is the expense of gasoline. The expense of gasoline contributes to inflation everywhere. It's not positive by inflation. Bad roads it's a requirement in order to be able to survive in a modern era. And the road that gets to my house, it hasn't been paid for 56 years. It is so bad. There's probably 50 potholes a week. It is like driving through a giant forest to try to avoid a pothole. But you have to then be careful that it's not going to get into a turn, it's not coming up the other way, going around the sharp turn. So, I mean, 56 on my house is like the letter from school, most people.
Right.
They
Here, if you could just speak into the microphone so the online audience can hear you as well, Bert.
Sure. Thanks, Manu. Thanks, by the way, also for your being here tonight and being so open and being so informative. Appreciate that. So I live on Old Summer Road. I second your speech because not only are people having a lot of problems navigating these roads, and our road, Old Summit Road, there's no guardrail. There's a 300-foot drop off that if it snows and there's more truck holes you're trying to avoid, somebody could go over that cliff. Also, we have a lot of kids who live on the road and they fall and they trip. My wife tripped and fell and she split open her hand. Tires get ripped up. We go through tires usually once every 18 months because they get ripped up by all the chuck holes. And if you go over, we're very close to Santa Clara County. They have these beautiful roads. I don't know what the deal is, but these roads that we have up here would never be said to be appropriate compared to the folks who are in Santa Cruz City. So the city has very different kinds of standards, but we have very poor standards on our roads. And that's the difference. Same way with PG&E. So we have a lot of disruptions with PG&E. Every week it's, the system's down for an hour, 2 hours, sometimes a day or two. And so PG&E is constantly trying to repair the system. I don't know what exactly the problems are, but that also would not be acceptable down in the flatlands. It just would not be acceptable. So it's not acceptable to us.
Certainly, I understand your concerns. So the question is whether the county has any negotiating power with PG&E in terms of straightening out the process. So that we don't regulate PG&E directly. That's the California Public Utilities Commission. But we certainly have been in discussions with PG&E and how, asked them to come to the table with town hall meetings just like this to explain and talk about their improvements they plan to make to their safety system for their power lines so that they don't have as many unnecessary blackouts as we did last year. Larry?
Yeah, my name's Larry Lopp. I've lived here for 50 years, raised my family, my children, and my grandchildren. I live on Soquel, San Jose Road. I think this problem we're talking about has probably been the #1 problem in these meetings for 30 years, okay? Now, we're not going to get out of this bind without one very simple thing: more revenue. Okay, we need more revenue. Now, there's a couple of ways to get more revenue. One is to go fight with each other about who gets a bigger share of the pie that we have. Another way is to get a bigger pie. We need more property tax, not a higher rate. We just need more property tax, period, if we're going to increase our revenue in the least painful way. Now, Mano, I have a question for you. The county just did a wonderful little dance. I don't exactly know. I would like you to tell me how the dance went and how you see it going. But you took our two most famous or infamous departments, the unplanning department and the public works department. Now, I want to say before I go any further that I've seen real improvements in public works. Not Manu, that's you. Matt Machado's done a really good job with very little funding. But what's happening there? Is it happening? And what's the attempt? I mean, two issues up here. It's virtually impossible to get a permit for anything. So you know what happens?
Yes, people build without permits.
And then we don't get the revenue.
Exactly.
That's right. That's the first thing. The second thing is the thing that we really need, like housing for our school teachers and any number of different things, we simply cannot get because, well, you tell me why. Because we don't get them. So how are we going to get higher revenue to fix the roads, to improve our school? Our school's now short of funds again. They've been living off property taxes with every 2 or 3 years parcel tax, an increased part. Is that what they call it? Yeah, increased parcel tax. So how are we going to fix this and not just kind of push it around the table?
Right.
We have plenty of space up here. There's not a really developed lot in these mountains that either already doesn't have a secondary dwelling, typically on tax, or room for a secondary dwelling. Now, I bet I would get nobody to raise their hand if they said, would you be willing to try and get another house on your property?
Well, all great questions. So let me start to unpack that for you, Larry. The first question was, what's going on with this dance of combining our two most famous or infamous departments, planning and public works? Great question. So yes, we officially approved that at the last meeting. And basically both public works and planning will now be under Director Machado. And it'll be called the Department of Community Infrastructure Community Development and Infrastructure. The goal here is also to, first of all, to change the culture, which has been problematic and has been more of a culture of no instead of how do we get to yes. So that's the first step. And part of that cultural change is going to be an emphasis on performance. So we are rolling out a data dashboard for permits. The dashboard will show a few key things. First of all, how long does it take to get a permit? You mentioned ADUs or small homes in the back of your lot. Is kind of funny might not be the right word, but when they demoed the data dashboard for us, it showed that it's taking on average around 400 days to get a permit for an ADU. This is after the streamlining, right? So clearly that's a pretty bad number. But the first step is making sure everyone knows that number and also making sure that people in the department feel some responsibility to bring that number down. We'll also be looking at how many applications are submitted complete. That's basically how well we're communicating with new applicants on what the requirements are. And part of the idea behind combining the departments there is that there's really can be just one person who helps get your application all the way from start to finish as quickly as possible. And so we are redesigning the 4th floor, the physical location where you can come and get advice from, basically the combined department on what you're going to need to get that application done as quickly as possible. So that's the real idea, is that, rather than planning saying, oh, you got to go talk to public works, and public works saying, oh, you got to go back to talk to planning, and then planning saying you got to go talk to environmental health, et cetera. We have one place where you can go and everyone will be there and can get the checklist done. Um,
From my experience recently, if you could have a checklist for everything right at the start. Because what's really upsetting is when you talk to one person, they tell you, this is what you got to do. You spend thousands of dollars with a designer or an architect and professional drawings, and you come back in and they give you 10 more things and they've changed a couple of them. And then when they reject your paperwork because the printing isn't dark enough, okay? And with us, it started off with in the planning department, they kicked my wife out. They said, oh, aren't talking to you with these chicken scratchings.
Yeah, that's pretty frustrating. And unfortunately, it's not the only time I've heard that story. So that is really part of the big motivation behind combining these departments is that you have, again, one person you can work with. It'll be a champion for your project rather than everyone saying, hey, it's not my problem. And two, to make sure that you start off with a very clear checklist. I'm sorry. So,
For a metal building.
right, yeah, there's no reason that should be the case. So to tie this back to where the conversation started, I 100% agree that making our now combined planning public works department more efficient and actually allowing people to get permits to build rather than everyone building illegally and none of that revenue being recognized will make a difference, right? I mean, right now, of course, we all have heard about the crazy home prices. We're actually seeing property taxes increase for the county at about 4 or 5% a year. Maybe if we really crank things up, we could double that. But I think that the problem is big enough that it's not going to be the only solution to truly turning the tide on roads. I agree. That's a good part of the solution. Let's take Robin, we'll take your question here. And then I also want to make sure that we go to questions in the audience, the online audience as well. So
this is sort of a double thing. You might consider approaching Santa Clara County because many of the residents of Santa Clara County are victimized by Santa Cruz County maintenance. And so you might want to renegotiate the contract with Santa Clara County for how you do that. And maybe we can get Santa Clara County residents to help push that. So I can't do that. I'm a resident of Santa Clara County, but the only road I go on is maintained by Santa Cruz County to get home. And they negotiated we'll do this side of Summit if you do that side of Summit deal. And maybe you could renegotiate that. Right. So the other piece is I just an update on your Office of Resilience, your OR3. Can you talk just a little bit about what's going on with that?
Sure. So the question is what's going on with our Office of Response, Recovery, and Resilience. And this is both our new emergency response office, and they're also looking at, as the resilience piece talks to, what we can do for better adaptation to the various issues we're seeing with the climate crisis, whether it's increased heat and fires or flooding. And so they are undertaking an update to the climate action strategy, now called the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, right now, including both measuring our annual carbon output levels, as well as looking at adaptation strategies. One probably you'd be most interested here in learning about is looking at how we can increase funding even just for culvert management, since the water flowing off of roads or into roads is one of the major factors leading to their early degradation. So that is actively happening. If you have any feedback or input for the office, you can reach out to, I don't have their, if you search for the Office of Response, Recovery, and Resilience, Santa Cruz County, I'm sure it'll pop up, or you can contact us and we'll happy to connect you with the Director Reed. They are under this, I'm sorry, I think they're their own department at this point. I believe they might still be within the county administrative officers directly under him. Sanjay, did you have a question? All right, well, we'll then go to Alex Vartan. Alex, feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hi, Manu. Thanks for going through all the tax distribution details. You know, it's very frustrating. You know, we're on the same age, and you know, we have to you know bear a lot of the burden for you know a lot of the policies. I think you know over the past decade, especially with respect to decades, especially with respect to Prop 13 and those of us who are buying their homes now and who have to pay, you know, our share of the market price. You know, when you know there's so many other homes around that are being assessed at a lower valuation. So I guess when I hear things like 4% a year, 5% a year, you know, I have great compassion for the sort of blocking and tackling, you know, you have to do. The other people, you know, have to deal with these, how to distribute scarce funds on a day-to-day basis. But it's frustrating because, you know, these are bigger issues that just can't be solved, you know, you know, on a you know, you know, individual basis. So I guess my question, besides that long comment, is a little more specific. You know, we hear a lot of the county employees now are going on strike. We all know about you know, retirement and pension liabilities. When I hear 4 or 5% a year increase in tax revenue, the first thing I think about is, well, aren't our pension liabilities going up 5-6% a year? Like, we're just, you know, it's sort of like, so what? You know, we know that expenses are going up, but if all of our marginal revenue is taken up by these liabilities that were put into place decades ago, and you know, by every single, you know, the next strike happens, and you know, all that marginal revenue's got to go, you know, to appeasing these employees. Like, where are we at? So maybe you can just speak to, you know, your thoughts on that, and specifically with respect to, you know, these scarce revenue, you know, increases every year. They're just going, you know, to the people who, you know, have sort of captured that revenue politically. So maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so if I can summarize your question, it's, well, what about the strike and the deal that was reached with the SEIU, and where does that put us? I mean, so it's absolutely true. I mean, with our current revenue projections for next year are a shortfall of between $6 and $7 million for next fiscal year. I would say that the deal reached with SEIU is one that we can barely afford. You know, and at the same time, I have a lot of sympathy for that perspective as well, in that we're only offering them a 3% cost of living increase over the next 3 years. And we've all heard that inflation right now is at 7%. So, you know, it's difficult, right? I mean, if all our county employees walk out or take jobs in other counties or choose to change professions, then there's of course a cost of trying to hire all those new employees as well. You know, with that, so there was the 3% cost of living increase over the next few years. That's part of that deal. And we also specifically increased wages in the healthcare sector, because we know that we were tracking under what other counties were paying their healthcare workers. And we know how much stress that entire sector has undergone over the last couple of years. So, you know, ultimately, is it going to be a challenge? Yes. But can we afford to lose all our county workers? No. You know, it's just where we're at. I mean, fundamentally, it does come back to this problem that we're a poor county, right? I mean, if we were getting more than 13%, we would not be dealing with these same kind of shortages in every division. And even with, you know, we could pay our employees more and get better roads.
Thanks, Manu.
But yeah, I mean, just to your point, and this is why I'm sharing this information, is I do think we need if we're going to fix roads, we need a plan. Just saying, oh, well, thinking the tax revenues are generally increasing, and so maybe the problem will go away. No, I mean, we need to have a concerted effort of how we are going to raise additional revenues, approve permits faster, and actually make a serious dent in this. Because otherwise, you know, it's a lot more expensive to improve to fix a road once it's failed than to do some preventative maintenance on it. I mean, just the same as it's cheaper to repaint your house than completely replace the siding after it's been completely destroyed by termites and 50 years of aging. So we definitely need a concerted plan, and that's why I'm trying to be as transparent with you all here tonight, so that we can start to talk about what that plan looks like.
Thanks, Manu. Really appreciate it. I guess my only brief follow-up is, you know, what can we do to fix that 13%? You know, because that just seems unsustainable. You know, this is a political, I guess summarizing my comment was, by trying to be a little clearer, is that, you know, this is a political problem. I know people don't like to talk about politics and on a local basis, just sort of what's in front of you and just try and solve that however you can. But this is, frankly, it's a political problem, and it's not going to solve unless the politics, you know, people want it to change. But maybe you can just speak to, like, how can we do that, at least on the 13%, you know, problem?
I think we need to get, you know, our department heads and our county administrative officer, as well as our state legislators, Mark Stone and Senator Laird, aligned with the fact that this needs to change. Because ultimately it's going to be something that comes out of Sacramento, either through a vote just to change the allocation for Santa Cruz County, or to put it to some kind of statewide vote on changing the way that formula is determined for every county.
Thank you. I mean, this sounds like the biggest, you know, the top #1 issue we all face, you know, apart from trains or whatever. I mean, this is the problem. So I think if we can all get aligned as citizens of this county, this sounds like a solvable problem, but it's got to be top of people's minds. So thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Alex. Next, we have George Smith. George?
Hello.
Yep, we hear you.
Okay. I just wanted to comment that you know, living up here in the mountains is kind of a privilege that a lot of people don't have. And although I'm not real fond of PG&E, I understand that it's more expensive to deal with folks up here because of the lines that run through the trees, and they could certainly do a better job. But you know, if we live up here and we want city services, we're in the wrong place. And one can hope this will get better, but the only way it can get better with respect to general services is if we tax ourselves more up here in the mountains. But as a practical matter, that is never going to happen, because you can't get 2/3 of the people to agree to it. So we have to kind of grin and bear it, but making a bit of noise helps from time to time.
Well, thanks for your perspective, George. Yes, I mean, you're right that certainly the easiest solution would be a new parcel tax. It'd probably be $300 to $400 per parcel, and the road problem would go away. So if we can convince 2/3 of the electorate to support that, yeah, that's the easiest solution. There's no doubt about it.
Good luck.
Thank you. All right, anyone else online? And just to reiterate, if you would like to ask a question, you can go to the reactions button at the bottom of your screen and click the raise hand icon there. Bill. Gotcha. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask a question.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you. Question I have is on the jet noise issue and all the Save Our Skies and that. Are you actively involved with that at all? Are you getting any input from FAA or any requests, or is that something handled only through our feds?
Yeah, at this point, Here, I'm gonna pull up a slide. Am I still sharing my screen? I think I am. Yeah, okay, so this has a little more information. I have met with, everyone I could on this issue, including, our regional representative from the FAA, and the former chairperson of the roundtable of all the local governments in this area. That roundtable, which is really our primary means for local government to try to impact this issue, was dissolved back in, was it November, beginning of November, because they could no longer get a fiscal sponsor, and they weren't making the progress that they wanted to. So at this point, the FAA has said, we're not going to listen to individual local governments because you guys, first of all, don't all agree on what needs to happen. That's why they wanted to and so at this point, our Congress people are really the best way to take direct action on the flight path issue. They need to hear from you. What we did learn from the FAA is that they did do an environmental impact report on a potentially different route. That impact report, as far as the findings of it, expires about the middle of this year. And so they need to hear that the alternate route is the one they should implement. And our Congress people are the best messengers for that. So if you want to continue to engage in this issue, please contact Anna Eshu or Jimmy Panetta directly.
Okay.
If it's not that one, I don't think so. No, those are just Big Sur and Surfer. So I don't have the images of the alternate route that was studied. Not on me. Okay, is there anyone else online who would like to ask a question or make a comment? Again, you can use the reactions button, raise hand. I'm not seeing anyone. I'll go back to the audience here live in person. Sanjay, did you still have a question? No? All right. Go ahead. And again, just keep speaking to the mic so that.
Well, so I heard not too long ago from somebody that the road maintenance for the city of Santa Cruz is a completely different department than for the rest of the county of Santa Cruz. Is that true?
Yeah, so the cities have their own public works department. So the city of Santa Cruz, the city of Watsonville, the city of Capitola, and the city of Scotts Valley. Those are all, those jurisdictions have their own public works department, and they manage the roads independently from the county of Santa Cruz. Of course, the county's job is a lot harder. We got a lot more miles to maintain and less revenue to do it with.
How are the funds how are the funds distributed? How is that decided on what the cities get versus what the rural areas get?
So some of that is the gas tax revenue that I mentioned that we vote on every year at the RTC, which projects get the funding. And so it's, the challenge is, well, do you go with the routes that get the highest traffic or the routes that need it the baddest? This year, we went with some county roads that were in bad need of maintenance. Soquel San Jose Road, San Andreas Road, and I believe it's Jameson Road, or another, it's in the 3rd district connecting Empire Grade to Highway 9. In any case, some county roads that much needed the work. In addition, of course, sales tax revenue, each jurisdiction gets their, whatever is sold within your jurisdiction goes to that jurisdiction. And so the cities in general have more businesses and more sales tax revenue than the county. So that means that generally they're in slightly better shape than the county is. I think on average, their road quality index is about 60 as opposed to ours at a 48. So that gives you some sense they're doing a little better, not a whole lot better, but somewhat better. Yeah, Larry.
Undergrounding project. Now, I know that there's a reason that they're going to pave from the population center down at the beach into the mountains. Okay, that's understandable. But the fire danger's up here. in our community. And to start the undergrounding project for the power lines down on the coast is ludicrous. We needed to start at the ridge where all the fire danger is. So I know it's a hard one because PG&E is under all that, but could you talk about that?
Sure. So Larry's asking about the power line undergrounding project along Soquel San Jose Road. This project was, the board, basically utility customers have been paying into a fund that goes towards power line undergrounding. And typically that has happened in the coastal area as part of a beautification process and to create some more parking, et cetera. After the CZU fires, we voted to move that money to addressing high-risk power lines in the rural area. And there's a few locations throughout the county that were identified that could be undergrounded. And the majority of the projects, though, are on Soquel San Jose Road. I mean, I think it's just off the top of my head, it's somewhere between a third and half of all the money is going to go to Soquel San Jose Road. It is extremely expensive to underground power lines, so we can't just underground the whole route. So they looked at areas that were basically at the highest risk. I don't think it's, you were suggesting that it's somehow, closer to town. It's pretty much right in the middle of Soquel San Jose Road. Maybe the balance is, it's around Mountain School. I don't have the map in front of me right now, but those areas were selected, based on their risk and exposure, both, to high wind or tree limbs, et cetera. So should the whole of Soquel San Jose Road be underground? Yes, absolutely. But actually those funds in general are going away. I believe that program is being sunsetted. So we're going to have to find another source of revenue to complete that project. Yes.
I was happy to hear.
Use the microphone.
I was happy to hear that the mask mandate is going away on the 16th. One of the questions I had is what plans does Parks and Rec have for opening up services and particularly enabling us to open up services up here?
I'm going to have to get back to you on that as far as Parks and Rec specific plans. Is there a specific facility you're?
For the community center, and opening up the 55 and older club, audiences up there, all the things we ran before.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'm happy to talk to our Parks Director about the 55 and older club. And please send us your list and we'll look at what the schedule is to bring those services back. All right. The mask mandate sunsetting on the 16th. That was a decision both of this for the state as well as for the Bay Area group of. Okay. Any further questions from members of the audience here live or on Zoom? Jamie, are you seeing anyone?
We don't have any more questions from the
I'm
virtual.
sorry.
There's no more questions from the virtual audience.
Okay, great. Anyone else here? Last call. All right, seeing none. Thank you everyone for a great meeting. I'll hang out and happy to continue to talk to anyone for a while longer. Thanks for coming out to join us tonight. The next meeting will be in March and we'll be at Santa Cruz Gardens. And at Santa Cruz Gardens Elementary. And happy to post these slides to my website in case you want to review them later. Thank you, everyone, and good night.